learning and teaching. So let's, so Prof, if you could just take about 40-45 minutes so that we can have another fun time to ask questions and also get some insights from other colleagues. So over to you, Prof.
So hello again for the next session about vocational didactics. It is much different than the one before, artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is a field which is yet under development. There's a lot there already. There's already a lot existing. Some aspects are scenarios which are in development. But now we have a topic, I guess you all also deal with that since a longer time and have your own experience with vocational didactics. Yeah, I have some ideas I want to share with you in this presentation. We call that, the context of that, what I'm doing here, we call it transfer. So in the university, we are responsible for research, so finding, getting new insights, understanding how things function, get understanding, explanations. So like the RE topic was a kind of starting into a research, yeah, because now the next question would be, when we have identified the scenarios, yeah, where are the people, where's the status, where are the problems, and that on, yeah. Here it's about our, the next steps, the transfer. The context of this topic is that we develop in our institute a methodology for curriculum development, and we call it qualification research. So because we wanted to understand what qualifications are needed in new occupations. For example, there was a new occupation up in the wind industry, yeah, and the question was, can we use the existing occupations which we have already there, or do we need a new occupation? So, and then we made a qualification research about this topic and came out with the proposal, we need a new occupation, and our federal institute said, okay, we do a new occupation, but it is a further up education. So it is a further training after the mechatronics. So that what I show you is also part of research to get out which qualifications are needed in new fields. Yeah, another upcoming field now is the question of green hydrogen. Yeah, so do we have just adopt the existing qualifications, or do we need some new? Welding is different, but yeah. So that is qualification research. But then we realized, because we are not only doing research in our institute, we are educating, we are training, we are educating teachers for vocational schools. Then we realized that this instrument is very good for our own teacher education. That this research tool should be something which our teachers use to develop their classroom teaching. And therefore, that what I show you is implemented in our teacher training. So, and that is for us transfer now. We transfer this instrument, what we have developed for research, we transfer it through our TVET teachers into the practice. And hope that with this tool, then sure the training of their teachers is better, to improve the teachers' training, yeah? Okay, so it's I'm focusing now more on this part of design which the teachers use for their preparation and for doing classroom teaching. And I show you the framework, how, what is related to that. But I want to first start with this nice picture and phrase. What is the pattern that connects? That is Gregory Bateson, and he was a great man. He was an anthropologist, he was a biologist, he was a science man, education, he developed a learning theory, he developed the double bind theory in psychology, he was the founder of system theory, yeah. So a great man. And this, what is the pattern that connects? That is what, in my view, often is missing in what we are doing in this work. Yeah? So I'm focusing on the pattern, and I want to show you the pattern of designing work process-oriented learning and teaching. That is my idea. I hope you will see the pattern at the end. Structure. Our teacher training is built on these three pillars. So we have on the one side the science, and as we are preparing teachers for technical fields, we have the engineering science, production technology, electrical engineering, information technology. That is the one pillar, and this knowledge we import from other colleagues of other faculties. Yeah? Then we have the vocational didactics. That is what I'm talking today about. That is how to bring this scientific knowledge into the work context, into the vocational schools. And then we have on the left side the vocational pedagogy. I was talking this morning with a person who said, I would call it vocational andragogy, because mostly the apprentices or the students are not children anymore. So you can also call it vocational education or pedagogy, but that's about really the educational part of the knowledge a teacher needs. Yeah? That's, for example, about how to give feedback, how to make evaluation, how to counseling people. Yeah? So that is all coming from the vocational pedagogy side. Yeah, some years ago, with colleagues from other European countries, we looked on vocational didactics, how they are doing it, how we are doing it, and then we defined some orientations for us across the different countries, and that was one of our principles. We have defined for us that if you define this kind of what to teach, how to teach, you have to take all the time the changing nature of work into your mind. And that is a big challenge, yeah, because that is what is maybe tomorrow or next year or upcoming topics or everything what we talked about in artificial intelligence. There's a lot coming up, yeah, but we have to take it today into account, not tomorrow. And that was the changing nature of work, but also the risk of poverty, the risk of social inclusion, the threats of overall living conditions. This all must be the framework for the thinking about what to teach and how to teach. An orientation, what we have in Germany about competence development, we have I guess, a different understanding of competence as you have. You're talking about competencies, yeah? We talk about competence, and for us very important is every person who is competent must be able to, competence to act. So he must be able or she must be able to solve a problem, a real work problem. So the competence is seen in the performance. That is one. The second is, and that is something which sounds very clear, but it just came up in the 1990s, so it's just 30 years old. It's not so old, yeah, that we say we want people there who are able for self-organization, not just listening to others. They must be able to make their own decisions, but under social responsibility. So we are not only focusing on you should be able to act, solve a problem, it's also the question how you solve it. So to learn independence in the vocational education and training. Not only to be able to solve a problem. And that makes the difference between learning for employment and learning for employability. So if you learn for employment, you learn how to fix a problem. But if you learn for employability, yeah, you are able to find solutions for problems which you haven't solved before. Yeah? So there can also new problems come up. This brings you the flexibility you need in the workplace for the changing situations. So if you're not focusing on the second part, you are just like a machine. There's a problem coming up and you can solve it or you cannot solve it. But if you're able for self-organized action, independent, autonomous, and with responsibility, you have this flexibility. I tell this also now with a discussion we had 2 weeks ago on a conference in Namibia. They have put this part of training, they have separated from the vocational education and training. They call it entrepreneurial skill. Yeah, you cannot name transversal skills or 21st century skills or entrepreneurial skills. It doesn't matter. They have all the same purpose. Yeah, this flexibility. But they have separated it from the vocational education and training. So they learn it in own models, not related to the work. And that makes no sense for me. Because we want that these people are independent in the workplace and not in building up a company idea which will never be a reality. Yeah? So our purpose is to embed that. And that is really a purpose, a focus. If you're designing a training, it's every time the question, how can I bring space inside so that the people have to decide and have a responsibility, have also to negotiate with other people. Oops, sorry. Yeah, and then the last, we work with these dimensions that we say competence means professional technical competence in a domain, it means personality, and it means social competence. So, and if you are training, that all must be the focus. And additionally, then methodology and learning to learn. So that is our understanding of competence. And I guess it's not 100% the same as you understand competencies here in South Africa. But we will see maybe later. If we take these triads, yeah, which is for us the heart of vocational education and training, yeah, professional, technical competence, personal competence, and social competence, yeah. So if you combine this for us very traditional idea with research, there's DC and Ryan, for me, they have developed the best motivation theory, self-determination theory. I don't know if you know it. And they talk about three basic needs every human being has, learner or not learner. Yeah? So 3 basic needs. And you can ask yourself if these are also 3 basic needs for yourself. So one basic need, they say, is social embedding. Every person wants to be social embedded. It's a basic need. And yeah, so that is related to social competence. The second basic need, they say, is autonomy. Every person wants to feel autonomy and be able to make decisions. And the third is, they say, every person wants to experience of being competent, not of being incompetent, of being competent. Yeah? So these 3 basic needs fit perfect to our triads of competence we have as an orientation in our training. And if you now go to the next step, self-embedded, there's a shake between, here it should be written not self-directed learning, cooperative learning. So cooperative learning is forms of learning which bring people together under special design so that they are learning in groups to solve a problem. So social competence, social embedding leads to training form, which means cooperative learning. The two sides are just changed. So personal competence, autonomy, self-directed learning, and then the last problem, project-based learning. So these three kinds of major learning forms, if they are related, leads to these trias of competence. So that's also a general orientation what I give here. So in designing teaching and learning, therefore all these three kinds of major pillars should be implemented. Coming now to the design principles, we have three options of designing a curricula. The one option is we are orienting ourselves on science. So we're going very systematic to the science and looking there and taking over from electrical engineering, for example. The second is we look on personality and look that the people emancipate themselves, that they grow, and personal development. And the third option is we look at real situations at the workplace and taking out our task out of this field. Yeah. So there are three options how to define what we are teaching and learning. And interesting is maybe the thing that this principle have changed in Germany over the years. So we started in the oh no, that's wrong. That should be 19. That should be 1900. Yeah. We started with apprenticeship in situation, in work, with a focus on personality like the master craftsmen. But then in the 70s, we switched and said, no, science orientation is the only one which is important. Vocational education and training should be oriented themselves to science. So we switched away from the relation to the workplace to the science orientation. And within very short time, just 10 years of time, in the 1980s, the industry came up and said, what you're producing there is not helpful for us. These people are not able to solve problems in the workplace. So we did in the 90s a big reform, and we changed away from the science now to this principle that we say, first, we orient everything what we do on situations and work. Everything must be work-grounded, situation, authentic. The second is we are focusing on personality. That means making people capable to be independent, autonomous, responsible, and critical. Yeah? And the third is the science. So every time you have to do some kind of prioritization. That is the problem. And this prioritization, what we have now, is also producing a problem. It is good, it is very strong related to the work, but it's not so strong related to the science. Science is priority 3. And that means we have a bit of problem to get this system now in connection with the higher education system, because there science is priority 1. Yeah. So, but this is now the priority list we have in our TVET, and based on this context are the next steps which I show you. Yeah? So if you have a different priority, the development of content, the development of curricula, the development of teaching is different. It is the question which is the priority, which principle is the priority 1 and 2 and 3. So another basic idea for us is we have in Germany we have based on our register but it's in all countries mostly the same. It's between 20 and 40,000. We have 27,000 occupations in Germany. So you cannot train for 27,000 occupations. It's just impossible. Yeah. And that is where in the British system the confusion is coming from. Yeah, so they are training for occupations, for gaining occupations, and then they set up thousands of competencies. Yeah, and don't know at the end how. Yeah, it's just not possible. You cannot focus on this amount, and you cannot keep this amount of occupations up to date. It's just not possible. It's a misconception. So what we do, and that's the same what other countries are doing, not only also Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, we are focusing on training occupations. It's mostly about 330, 340, and these training occupations, they prepare for the 27,000 gaining occupations. That means that our occupations have to be broader to reach all these gaining occupations above. Yeah? And we are developing just 330 careers, and these careers are not all filled. Yeah? There are some careers there, we have just 20 apprentices in whole Germany. Yeah? But other careers like car mechatronics, we have thousands of apprentices. Yeah? Yeah. So the challenge is how to define an occupational profile which is fitting to a lot of gaining occupations. I was talking about this vocational education change and the competence understanding what we have. We did a switch in the 90s, and in the general education, actually, we had a different principle in Germany. And that I show you because sometimes vocational education and training tries to orient to general education. And at least what we did is that we say, no, it's different. Yeah? So we have not the same orientation. And just to give you a bit a background about this idea is we had in both fields, in vocational education and training and in the general education, we had a criticism of the system. So in the general education, it was stimulated by PISA because we have been below the medium of OECD, and that was a big topic in 2000 and later. And measurement came up, and the PISA measurement stimulated competence measurement in general education. And they said in general education, okay, we have to do something. We have to go away from knowledge acquisition to outcome orientation. Okay, in the vocational field, we had no PISA. So the critics came not in with PISA, the critics came in by the industry, which said, oh no, these people are not competent for us. You have to change your system. And out of these different backgrounds, the general education then oriented themselves to science, and vocational education oriented themselves to situations and work. Yeah? So we have a split in our two systems, in our general education and vocational education system. We have a totally split about how we think teaching and training should be. And also, based on this difference, we have a different understanding of competence in this field. So if I'm talking with a person from general education and he speaks about competence, I know that this person is speaking about something different than I do. Because I speak about competence to act, to solve problems in the workspace. And in the general education, they speak about the cognitive abilities to solve problems. So it's a difference. Yeah, and that at the end leads to the situation that we have a subject orientation in general education, and we have situation orientation in vocational education and training, and the situation is something different than a subject. If you have a project, if you have a problem in the workplace, this problem is not asking, if I'm a mathematical problem, if I'm a language problem, if I'm an electrical problem, if I'm a mechanical problem, I'm just a problem. So you have to combine different subjects to solve a problem. A problem is not following the logic of a subject. The problem is not following the systematic idea of science. A problem is a problem, and a problem has multi dimensions. So it's not possible, or it is difficult, let's say like that, it is difficult to solve problems in the workspace which are multidimensional if you're just coming with dimensional thinking of science. So we have now, and that is the situation, we have now two different systems. The people who are switching from the general education to the vocational education has to understand that now they are switching to another system of thinking. Yeah? And also the teachers, for the teachers it's really a challenge, because our teachers in the vocational schools, they are still educated in the university on the principle of science, but then in the school they should train on the principle of situation, work problems. So that there is a problem in the system. That was, for example, a curriculum out in 1983 with this science orientation in TVET. Yeah? It is about, and that was also the curriculum. You can see there were learning content was defined, there was methodological teaching note, so the teacher was said what he should do or she should do, and also the time was defined. So our curriculum in the past was very strict and told the teacher what to do. Yeah. So this curriculum in the past treated teachers like stupid machines. So you put the curriculum plan inside the teacher, and then teaching is coming out. Yeah? So it was everything predefined for the teachers. So there was like a de-emancipation of the teachers in this science principle. Yeah? So, but we are not anymore there. We are now here. And that is what I said, we don't have subjects anymore. If you look at our learning fields, you don't find mathematics, you don't find English, you don't find the classical subjects which you are expecting in a curriculum. So we have coming out from the workplace, we said, okay, what are the problems a skilled worker has to be able to solve? Out from the idea competence to act. So what are the problems a skilled worker should be able to solve? And then here it's for industrial mechanic. Yeah, we say, for example, fitting of technical subsystems or installation and commission of control systems. That is a field of activity a skilled worker should be able to solve. And in this field of activity, we put 60 hours inside. So it's not like before 1 hour, 3 hours. Now we say the field of activity, this problem, which is a classical problem for a skilled worker, is about 60 hours. And at the end, if you're able, here 15, if you're competent in each 15 fields here, then you can make the German trade test. So that is the idea of learning fields, where we went away from subjects where we went away from science orientation to problems or problem orientation, to activities which a skilled worker must be able to do in his or her workplace. Areas of learning, we call them. A second concept which is for us very important, and that makes, I guess, also a difference to other countries, is that we look on work process knowledge. So we don't look at tasks, we look at work process knowledge. Every problem, when you solve a problem, this is not just one activity, it's a chain of activities. And if in this chain of activities, somewhere inside the chain, you have a break, or you have a lag, or you have a gap, yeah, then you don't get the problem solution. Maybe you get around this gap, could be, but it's a chain. So, and therefore we are not looking on tasks in the workplace, we are looking on work process context. And this work process knowledge is based on the one side of objective knowledge, so this knowledge which you can write down in books and knowledge which you can program in simulations, but it's on the other side, it's based very context-related, situation-related on subjective knowledge. So in this part, subjective knowledge, clear, you can only gain in the work experience. You cannot gain out of learning by books. And in the middle, we have like an overlap, and both cycles together is work process knowledge. Yeah, also the subjective and the objective part together. And now, just for illustration, I have a work process for you. Yeah, so this is a very simple work process, but so here is somebody is installing an electrical plug, and the first what he has to do is marking up. Then the next step will be drilling, pre-drilling. When he or she has done that, then sink cans. Then the next is cutting, stemming, preparation, plaster, and so on and so on. So the basic, and I guess you follow this idea, the point is not, you should not be able to stem, yeah? You must be able to put a lot of activities, stem, and then other activities. So each activity has a context, and this is the process. So when we are teaching and learning, we have to embed all this learning into these processes. Otherwise, the solution is not the pre-drilling or the plaster. The solution is being able to do the whole work process. So teaching and learning should be based, therefore, if it's situation-oriented, on work processes and not on tasks. Okay. So, and now we come into the field where we say, so, and what's up now with that for our teachers? Yeah. So how could they get from these conceptual ideas, which that was all conceptual ideas about teaching and learning, how do they use and use it now for their own teaching in the classroom? So this is a tool we call the work process matrix, and the first is that you see each work process has like 4 phases. Yeah, the first phase is acceptance. So every task starts with a phase where you negotiate with the customer about which solution he or she needs. That can also be inside the company a colleague who is your customer. Yeah. So, but every work process starts with an acceptance. The second is planning. So you have to prepare yourself for the work, then you do it, implementation, and at the end, completion, testing. So every work process has these 4 generic phases. And then, based on these 4 generic phases, we have different layers where we say to be able to perform this work process, you need knowledge about the context of this work process. So you need knowledge about the laws, regulations, vary on the meta, but you need also knowledge about the company conditions. You need knowledge about the customer requirement, about the work steps. I was just showing one of these work processes as work steps. And then at the end, you have work objects. So these objects which should transform in your work. And for this, we have guiding questions for these different layers. And that is what our teachers are doing, our student teachers. They go with this matrix and these questions, they go into the workplace and make shadowing to the workers and look what they are doing and write it down, yeah, to get an insight about the work processes which are there. And based on this work processes, this is the work process matrix. If you accumulate them across different companies, you come, then that relates into the field of activity. And if you put these all together, the field of activities, you finally here at the whole occupation, all competences which at the end an skilled worker should have. That is the same as the other, which this 15 fields, learning fields, which I showed before. Yeah, there's, for example, a learning field: planning, installation, and commissioning of systems for regenerative energy supply. Yeah, so if you're doing electrical fitter, it's really a need that you have the skills to do that. Okay, now you can switch and say, no, we don't want to make such holistic educations, because in every field are at least 60 or 80 hours, and that all relates at the end that you have a 3 to 4 year training for vocational education and training. Yeah, you can break it down and say, okay, now we just train people in one field, and then they get a certificate, and then they go to the labor market. Yeah, but then you have a customer, you have a company who said, no, I don't need this skill, I need another skill. So if you're following this system that each worker has a set of skills, a set of systems of activity that makes a worker flexible. Flexible to different customers, flexible to different situations, and also flexible to the change in the work. If you have just one competence in your hand, one competency in your hand, you must be very lucky to find in this time a customer who needs exactly this one competence. Yeah? So flexibility is one thing which has big purpose for us, and therefore we are not following this idea to break down these occupation in pieces. Now the question is, which is the pattern which connects? So an electrical fitter is a pattern. It is not one competency. And the question for us is, which is part of this pattern of an occupation? And that is related. The different fields are also related in between each other. If you divide them into pieces, they are like dying. Yeah? You are killing the occupation. So when we have this done, also what we do is that we invite skilled workers to our university, to our students, and then they present their findings to them and get in discussion with them. So it's every time a challenge. If you bring people into the practice, they can participate, but do they learn in this practice? Yeah? And this matrix which I showed you is for us an instrument to focus the learning of the student teachers, so that they get a special focus when they get into the practice to learn. So that means we have the fields of action in the practice, and these fields of action we have transformed into learning fields for the vocational education and training, and these are our new curriculum. These are our new curricula. So you have just 80 hours there, then there's about what is the objective and what are related contents. And all other is now up to the teacher to define how to do, what to do, when to do, in which learning classroom form to do. So the teachers have now a lot of freedom, and that is possible. If the teachers are good educated, you can do it. If they are bad educated, this system would be very problematic. So, and from there, from the learning fields, we are, the next step into the classroom is now that we are like a simulation of the learning, of the workplace in the school, is that we have these phases like assignment clarification. At first you have a customer problem and you have to clear this customer problem. The second is you do the planning, so you look at the work process steps you need, you look at the tools and equipment, you look at the materials, you look at the safety overall, then you decide about practical preparation, which machines do I need, theoretical preparation, you look into the books, what are the theoretical backgrounds, and then you go into the execution, and at the end you do the evaluation. So this is like project, yeah. So each learning situation can be trained on a project base, very related to the work situation. And here the pictures from this learn and work assignment as a complete action, that was actually a training what we did with teachers in the automotive sector in Namibia. Yeah? And we defined 10 of these learn and work assignment and did it with this teacher, and it was fantastic. It was unbelievable. At the end of the day, they didn't want to go out of the workshop. They continued and worked and learned. Yeah, it was really fantastic. So, and in this project-based learning, you have to get back to the beginning. You have cooperative learning integrated because the students are learning in groups. You have the independence integrated, for example, here. So we don't teach them theoretical knowledge. We gave them the book and said, okay, now search the solution in the book by yourself. And that is also the topic of learn to learn. Yeah? So they went into this book, which is a big automotive book written from an American in English. And there they do the independent self-directed learning. And overall, it's a problem-based learning, for example, because each learn and work assignment is based on a problem. So the problem, like a customer is coming and said, my engine is not working. Okay, problem. Now you have to start and to find the solution. And that is what you have to be able to as a skilled worker. Yeah? A customer is coming with a problem and you solve it. And if you're able to do that, the customer is paying. Yeah. Okay, so that means the work process matrix leads to this field of actions and occupations. That feeds to the learning fields, which are not anymore subjects, which are now problems out of the workplace. And that leads to the project-based learning, what we do in vocational education and training. And sure, for such kind of learning, you need the good environment. So on the left side, you see a very artificial environment, which is often used in electrical engineering. I also saw it here. But that is classic. That is very traditional. It was just, have you ever seen a car which looks like that? You can understand the principle, but you would not be able, with that knowledge, to solve an electrical problem in the car. Never. The second is better. Because here you have already the real products which are used in a car, yeah? And the third is even better, because there you have already a car, and the best is just a normal car, yeah? Very easy. So that means this kind of learning, what we wish to have, is related also to the environment. So now our schools in Germany, they are not good equipped. They have maybe this, could be, sometimes they have a car. So how is this working here then in a dual system? In your system where the vocational education, where the vocational schools, the colleges are equipped, you can imagine that you're doing that all in the school. In Germany, it's divided between schools and companies, but that means that the first part, like the assignment, clarification, the planning, and we do in the schools, the preparation and the execution we do in the company, and the evaluation and reflection we do again in the school. So that means this kind of project-based learning for us is also a tool, and now very idealistic. It's not every time working perfect, yeah, but it's also a tool for combination of company and teaching, also company and school-based learning. So that was some principal ideas I wanted to share with you about our understanding of teaching. So the first is that we say we are related to situations and to the work reality. That means we cannot orient us to subjects. We have orient us to work problems. So if we orient to work problems, we have to identify them. For the identification of work problems, we use the idea of work process knowledge. That we say you combine steps in a work process. But one work process is not enough for us, because work processes are strongly related to the organization of a company. So you have to look at different companies and put them together, and then you come to more a generic work process which fits to different companies. Yeah? So these are then the fields of activities. And normally we define something between 14 and 18 of these fields of activities, which we group together in our occupation, because we say flexibility on the labor market is only possible if you have different cards to play for a customer. The one customer wants to have this skill, another wants to have another skill. If you have possibilities to answer to different customers, your possibility to get a job is higher, first. And the second, your income is higher, because you have a higher value for the customer. My brother, for example, he was by C&R. It is they produce clothes in Germany. Yeah, he was hired as a manager to build up C&A in Italy. Yeah. So he was situated in Italy to do that, but then C&R changed the strategy and said, no, we don't go anymore to Italy, we go to Spain, yeah? And in France we de-establish. So his job was totally transformed into something different as he was acquired, and that happens in companies. They acquire you, they hire you for a certain job, but then they realize, oh no, I need this person for something different. So, and then if you don't have the skill, you're losing the job. Yeah? So as more options you have, and not in this thinking of levels, yeah, which is here branded in it's not the question of level 5, 6, 7, 8. It is on this level, not in this level. Yeah, is a person able to perform different tasks? That is the challenge, not to jump a step higher. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, and that is our way to come back to the beginning about vocational didactics. About designing work process-oriented learning and teaching. And that is a field in our university where every teacher is going through. We have 2 modules, 9 credits, 18 credits. It's a lot. It's almost 600 hours. Our teachers go through that. Okay, finish.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. So they go through 600 hours. How many hours do we go through? 480. So anyway, as you have heard, it's so interesting what you just said, Mike, because in our context, you will hear colleagues say, no, me, I'm a specialist in this. Me, because they go through all those 10 levels. No, me, I studied accounting. So you can hear what's going on here. It's not about the subject specific, just like we are still following the classic type of subject. Actually, Eunice is here with my science colleagues and the IT colleagues. If I move somebody to science, they tell me, no. Me, I'm an IT specialist. If I move maybe Eunice to IT, she will tell me, no. Leave me in science, But you can see what's going on here, colleagues. It's a totally different model from what we are accustomed to. So let's take some questions. Yes,
thank you very much. Another wonderful and profound presentation, Prof. And thank you so much. Now I'm very much interested in you explaining this because you are mentioning for the second time the levels and the skills, and you make a point that it's not about the levels, and as a result you seem to rubbish levels, but more focusing on skills. What is this problem about the levels in relation to skills? Hence, for you, it's something that we should not really be focusing on. What is the limitation of the levels? That's the first question.
What is the limitation of the levels?
So what is it that the levels seem not to be equipping a candidate with vis-a-vis than the candidate acquiring a skill? So I want you to really delve deeper onto this theme of levels and the skill.
Okay.
The last question, you also mentioned something in your work process knowledge. It's just on my notes, I'm charging my phone while I was writing my notes. You kept on saying it's not tasks, it's work process. How do you differentiate between the two? Thanks.
How to?
Differentiate.
Yeah. So the levels, I told this morning in another group. We implemented these levels in Germany also because it was an idea forced by the European Commission. So all European countries have implemented a qualification framework with different levels. And in some countries, these levels have a regulative function. So it defines what you're allowed to do, and that defines maybe also your income. Yeah. In Germany, it has just a communicative function. So, or to make it even more clear, we don't care about the levels. We have them, but we don't use them. We don't have these steps from, as I said this morning, for example, a master craftsman is level 6, but if he wants to go to master, as a master craftsman from the workplace, he's level 6, and if he wants to do a master in the university, which is level 7, he cannot do. He has to do again the bachelor with level 6. Yeah, so there's no progressive logic. It's just as it has before. We use this system. So the problems of the level is that the people are now focusing on these figures, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, and they are not focusing anymore on qualifications, on job profiles, on competences, on experience. Yeah, that is the shortcut of this level system. Yeah, and that was actually also the idea of the level system, to reduce the complexity. Yeah, but it has reduced the complexity in such a strong way that it's not any more for value. But I can say this coming out of a system where levels are not important. Yeah, if you are in a system in a different context where levels are counting for regulative, yeah, it is different. Yeah, but so. Yeah, and competence is here, like as I said, no? If you are in one field, like electrical fitter or car mechatronics, if you are able to solve a wide range of problems, yeah, and even if you go then inside these problems, because that makes the difference between the first year, the second year, and the third year. There's a progression. Yeah, so the first year problems are much easier than the third year problems. So if you want to talk with levels, you have in these 3-year programs, you have also levels you could put in. Yeah, I guess we should more focus coming back from the workplace. If you're thinking from the workplace, you're just thinking about capability to solve problems. So, and that should be the orientation. And that is, I guess, as a customer, as a company, I'm interested that the person I have is able to solve a problem. That is my first interest overall. Yeah? And that is the orientation what we have with the learning areas. Yeah? And the second is the related payment. Yeah? So if you are able to solve complex problems other persons are not able to, sure, you're higher paid. No? And that is related to the question of stigmatization. Or not stigmatization. So that was about levels and qualifications. Is this okay answered or not?
Yeah, for the sake of time and progress. Why?
Okay.
Okay, Eunice.
How important is the knowledge of the field? You gave examples to say one for the electrical field, the other one for mechanical something.
Yeah, industrial mechanics. Yeah.
How important is the knowledge for one designing the work process oriented learning? How important is the knowledge of that field or that domain or that person to be able to do this? You gave examples of electrical field.
Yeah.
Is it important for someone to get knowledge in the electrical field and then knowledge in the other field to be able to do this? Or it doesn't really matter?
No, it needs knowledge as well, background knowledge. It's still needed. As a science orientation, for example, is still needed, but it's under the roof of a problem. Yeah, it's a question of priority. Yeah, so we are starting from the problem, and then we think, okay, what do you need for experiences and knowledge to solve this problem? The other orientation is you have a knowledge and then you are searching the problem with which you can do something with your knowledge. Yeah? So how to transfer your knowledge into workplace. But we have the different orientation. So we say what is the problem, and then starting from this problem, what knowledge is necessary, which work process knowledge. And this work process knowledge is a combination of objective knowledge, also science knowledge, yeah, but also company knowledge, also knowledge about the context, knowledge about the steps, about the objects, and that all together makes you capable to solve a problem. Yeah.
So the knowledge of the field is not developed in isolation. In our context here in Africa, we develop knowledge in isolation, and then with the hope that at some point in time we're going to integrate, and that is where I think there's a disconnect. I think, Prof. Michael, if I can ask you, I think you will answer this question. You have doctor on your title, because in our context, when you have doctor, that means you have done 2 PhDs, you know, but in German, I want to believe that it's something totally different. So why doctor?
Yeah, my first doctor is a doctor I get from my technical university in Aachen, where I did a PhD about industrial education. Yeah? And the second doctor, which is a Dr. HC, that means honoris causa, That is a doctor I get from the University of South Florida. And that was an honorable doctor, yeah, for my international work. So putting that in my title, I honor my university in Florida who gave me the title.
I think the question is, in German, just getting a doctorate, the PhD, is not enough. That is, yeah, that's what I want you
to become a professor.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the classical way. You write the first book, then you are a doctor, and then you have to write a second book, habilitation, and then after the second book, the habilitation, you can become a professor, maybe. Yeah. But to write a book, and I was talking that yesterday with you, to write a book has very rarely to do with the work of a professor. It's the same here, what we were talking about. Yeah, a professor, sure, has to be able to perform research, but that's just one piece of our work. A second piece of our work is we have to write research proposals and to earn money for our university. Yeah, therefore I need also skills in accounting and financing. I need also skills in administration. Yeah, I need skills in directing a team, not in directing words, also in directing a team. Yeah, I need. There are a lot of skills you need. Yeah, and therefore we said the best way to earn these skills is embedded in the real environment. And that is the new way to become a professor, and that is what I did. That has nothing to do with my second doctor. Yeah? So I didn't write the second book because I said, no, I don't want to sit 5 years alone in the class and talking with nobody and writing a thick book nobody's reading. Yeah? So, I became a junior professor. I was professor by title, by responsibility, but not by payment. I had a reduced payment, but I had all the responsibilities. And I learned to be a professor on the job. I learned to be a professor as an apprentice, yeah? Embedded in a community, and then I had evaluation. They were asking, okay, how many papers have you written? How many money have you acquired for our university? How big is your team? What are the students saying about your teaching? And then at the end of this evaluation, they said, okay, we are happy. But then I didn't want to wait for the second evaluation, so I applied for another university and I made the shortcut. And they said, okay, please come, professor, here. And then my old university said, no, don't go. You get immediately tenured. Yeah. So we have like two ways. We have this habilitation way and we have the junior professor way, like tenure, something in the British system.
Okay, George.
Thank you for the presentation. I need clarification on one thing. You said that your institution trains for both of the technical schools and the industry. I totally understand the industry. But when you say graduate, when we use the word graduate, then train two candidates. One is going to the industry, another one is going to the technical school. They are all undergone the 600 hours. My focus is on the one that is going to the technical school. Is that person going to replicate this embedded program in the schools? And what is the nature of the programs in the schools? Do they use the embedded system where you train their specific, you don't do geometry by geometry, you don't do trigonometry as such, you just solve problems as somebody in the industry is doing. That the system that applies in the technical schools as well.
Yeah, so we are educating and training, as you said, for both sides, for companies and for schools. Yeah, but I would say 98% of our students go to schools. Because, and that was The overall master is 1,800 hours, and 600 hours is related to that what I presented. Yeah, so a bit again. So and most of our students go to vocational schools because being a vocational teacher is a fantastic job. It's good paid. You have good environment. You have a lot of freedom and space. It's a fantastic job. So that's the first. Yeah, also theoretically, our people can also go to companies, but normally they go to the vocational schools. And the second, our schools, and that was a big reform process which needed about 10 years, and that was actually under the direction of our institute, yeah? Because this idea came out of our institute, and we transformed it into Germany. Yeah? There was a big organization, because that was an organizational change. The schools had to change from subjects to situations. And the teachers who taught subjects for years had to change into situations. And that was a problem, because the identity is I'm a mathematics teacher. I'm a TVET teacher, I'm a mathematics teacher. Yeah? So we had an organizational development project for a long time, starting in 1996, and a lot of projects all over Germany under the supervision of our institute. And still, now, 20 years later, there are schools following the old principle. Yeah, it's every time like that. It's difficult. So just with the new generation, which is also grown up, socialized with a different mindset, yeah, then we will have 100%. At the moment, nobody knows how many schools are teaching this principle and how many are teaching the old principle, because after many years of researching about this topic, politics and also the science lost a bit the interest. I'm still curious. I would say 80% are following this principle, not 100, 80. Yeah. But we have no figures about that. So if you're coming with this principle into a vocational schools, normally you can adapt because the schools have changed.
Okay, there are two questions. Think about this, Michael. How many years does it take to become a teacher in Germany?
Yeah.
How many years?
Yeah.
Think about it. Yes, Amen.
Thank you very much for a very informative talk. And I think part of what you've just said kind of answers partly what I was going to ask. Because, you know, this shift towards a competence, what can you do kind of question in the workspace. We see it a lot with our engineering students who get taken up by other industries, like they go into banking, for instance, which is where they would not have expected to end up eventually when they started with their studies. So this kind of breaking of walls, particularly in terms of the subjects that you're saying, it's not really maths that they are learning, it's more what field of action can they go into. The question is more about what is qualification research saying in terms of how far those walls are breaking. And I suppose part of what you are, you quoted an 80%, I'm not sure, maybe clarify for me. Is that relating to the take-up, or does that relate to the schools, the actual educational institutions, and how this has played out in terms of, you know, moving away from subject-orientated ways of delivering this? I'm not sure if my question is clear.
Can you please?
So my question relates to the extent to which this transformation is happening. You know, how many of your schools are moving in this way in Germany, in terms of not being subject-orientated? Okay, but generally, what is the take-up of this new approach in your way?
Yeah. So this approach started 1996 with pilot projects, yeah, and then 1998, 2000, it was defined as compulsory. Compulsory
Okay.
for all schools, yeah. But as teachers have in the classroom a lot of liberty, yeah, they can also hide and go around this this principle. And also you have to keep into account that the teachers are still educated subject-based. And then when they came to the vocational school, then they should think on situations. Yeah. So we are now breaking this subject orientation in the teacher training by doing that 600 hours. Yeah. But another 600 hours are subject oriented. Yeah. So and it's much easier to build your own identity based on subjects than on problems. Yeah. So they come with a kind of identity that they say, I'm an engineer. Yeah. So my major purpose in the master program is to transform their identity from I'm an engineer to I'm a teacher. That is major. That is the most important for me. Then when they after 2 years when I ask them what is your profession, if they answer I'm a teacher, then I did my job good. If they say I'm an engineer, I lost. Yeah. Yeah. And we have no figures how many schools and how many teachers are following actually this principle. We have no figures. And our federal institute are not gaining figures. And it would be also difficult if you ask a teacher, are you following the compulsory route or are you breaking out somewhere and hiding around? What should he answer? I'm not doing my work properly. So it's also very difficult to get real figures about. You have to talk with people. And then actually we have at the moment one PhD student who is going into the reality of that in the vocational schools. Yeah? And he said he took 5 pilot schools to look at, and one pilot school he just lost because the teachers were in conflict and blah blah, and it was not working. So we have no figures. My expectation is that it's not 100%. Yeah.
Okay, Mashit, and then.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your presentation. I would like to draw from the first few slides based on the competency development framework that you just touched on. But then there were some parts of the answers that you touched on it. In terms of in the context of Germany, what are the potential barriers that are faced by learners in terms of considering that they may be coming from a different socio-economic backgrounds? So my question in a way is how does the framework that you use address the potential barriers that are faced by learners from diverse backgrounds in terms of achieving self-organization and independence? And if so, are there any specific provisions within that particular framework that you use in order to support them in terms of developing, I think you mentioned the concept of professional, personal and social competencies, considering that they may have different levels of exposure and also they may have different levels of experience.
Yeah. Could you please again frame your question?
I'm referring back to the first 2 sets, I think the first 3 slides of your presentation based on the competency development framework.
Yeah.
So the question is it's about inclusion and exclusion. A diverse population of students. How do you guarantee that you will not leave other students out?
Yeah. You're talking about people with special needs if you talk about inclusion?
Not necessarily.
Or you're talking about social stratification if you talk about inclusion?
Yeah, social.
Social stratification, okay. But maybe also the topic with people with special needs is interesting. Because especially in Bremen, in my town, in the general education, we have integrated all people with special needs into the general education. So special schools for people with special needs, handicapped, is not existing anymore in general education. They are all embedded. So we have no exclusion anymore in Bremen in the general education. In the vocational education and training it's different, because people with special needs, especially in vocational education and training, needs a special environment. And we have special environments for people learning occupations, even if they are not having the full range of capability, physically or mentally. Yeah? So they have special needs, and for this we have special environments where they can learn occupations. And I'm very happy that we have no inclusion there in this way, yeah? Because this environment is not existing in the vocational schools. If we would include them, we would just give all the scaffolding away, which is helpful for them. But that was not your question. Your question was about social stratification. So the first about social stratification is that we have a dual system and we have a school-based system in Germany. We have both, depending on occupations. Yeah. So in the dual system, an apprentice has to apply at the company, and when the company accepts, then he gets a place in the school. So everything is going through the application of the company. And you can imagine that a company is not inclusive oriented. They cannot say, I take everybody to solve a social problem. They say, I take the people who help me to solve my problems I have in my company. So companies are not inclusive. They are exclusive. They are very oriented to their own problems they have. Yeah. So in there, we have research about that there's a high social disadvantage for people after the 9 degrees. So normally the dual system was thought after 9 degrees you go into the dual system. But if you do that, you have almost no possibilities to go into the dual system. And if you have a name which is sounding not German, you don't get an apprenticeship. Yeah. If you go one step higher to the 10th class, and that was data I was collecting in our country, in Bremen, then this background, this social, cultural background, is not affecting anymore your chances. Yeah. So that is the question to coming in. Yeah. Also there's already a selection in the income, and therefore we have 250,000 students who are waiting on a place for an apprenticeship, and we have 1.3 million people in the apprenticeship. Yeah, so but 250,000 wants to have an apprenticeship, and they are waiting, and the companies said they are not qualified, not on a professional level, on a social and mentally and maturity level. They say they are not qualified for an apprenticeship. And then inside this system, for example, if you think about the group work, how they do it in project-based learning, yeah, there you can fantastic mix the groups with different skills. Yeah, that is a classical question for do you make homogeneous or heterogeneous group? Yeah, and I would say all-time heterogeneous group, not homogeneous group, for this kind of inclusion inside the training. Yeah. So have I answered your question?
Yeah. Okay. We'll take. Okay. Hasij, yes.
I really don't know everybody here. I know a few people. I'm Helen Brown, and been with the Mercita for 2 decades. And obviously, as a CETA, we're an intermediary between industry and education. So industry pays the skills levy to the Mercita, and in turn, we disperse this regime grants to incentivize the skill formation, the creation of skilled people for industry. This is our journey. And I think often what vocational education in South Africa misses is what the employer wants, what's happening in the technology field that the employer needs to make his business successful. So we certainly see the necessity for learning fields changing from situations. And just an interesting study that we just finished. We looked at if we changed, and we deal with the trade test in trade occupation, so it's technical. We thought we've been working with developing vocational teachers for so long, but exactly what you said, you don't know, everybody's hiding behind the targets that are set by the ministry. How many students passed this year? It's all a tick box, and it's a machine of processing students. And we say, but what we want for industry is the competence. And people, it's not competencies, it's competence. It's this holistic shaping competence that Professor Gesser is talking about. So we ran this study, and we thought, because we've been working so long with teachers, so long with curriculum, we were very involved with the debates around the NCB and how that should be transformed into occupational qualifications. And after all this time, we're saying, what else could we use to try and transform the system? So we put together a research project to adjust the trade test from a task-based trade test into a scenario, dynamic scenario to a project-based trade test. And the interesting thing that we found, what I was so excited about, is the results. You can't be competent or not incompetent. Okay, you are graded against criterion references. It's not norm reference, it's criterion reference. And each criterion we earn points. But when you look at the points of the group, you look at the variation around the mean. And those students who are learning through work processes in these dynamic projects, you have a lower variation of results around the mean, which means that the students who are lagging behind are brought up because of this dynamic learning that's taking place. So that variation around the mean was a very positive indication that if we can continue this, and remember we're dealing with human capital development, there are no quick fixes. If we can continue to try and understand this competence-based learning fields, work process learning, dynamic project scenarios, if we can continue to try and get this embedded in the practice of TVET lecturers, we're going to make progress. Possibly another example I can tell you, recently Ford had some jobs open for artisans in their plants in North Gauteng. And they interviewed, they had quite a few jobs, so they had 200 on the list to interview. 2 were employable by their standard. We're doing something wrong. We have to transform out of this task-based, isolated, I've done that, I can do it, get it out of the way, into this holistic understanding of the learning area and being able to apply your knowledge, skill, and ability in the work-based learning scenario. That's just and of course, I was originally introduced to learning areas and competence measurement through the University of Bremen from way back as 2009. So you're all in for a long journey. You can do all the research. We've got some students from South Africa who went to Bremen. They had a scholarship to do a PhD. We have Dr. Jacobs, who Professor Gessler supervised in this topic. And we have another recent graduate who was working through our knowledge transfer through the University of the Western Cape. So it's an area to watch. Certainly, it's an area to want to know more about, because this is what industry wants. And where I come from, industry is your industrial economy. Industrial economy is your GDP. If you can serve that with the right kind of competence, you can grow an economy. That's it.
Thank you.
I just wonder if everything what I said, if there was just one new idea for you, because you are since long time familiar with what I presented, yeah. But maybe you can tell me later if there was something new for you, or
There's a new idea.
yeah.
There's an idea of...
That would be my question to you.
Yeah, there is an idea.
Yeah?
I've just got ideas. That's my profile.
Okay.
I lead applied research and innovation projects. And I think that we need to try and embed, if you take our advanced dip and our PG dip, okay, we should be embedding modules about this.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have any yet. We've got, broad-based advanced dip curriculum, but it's broad. We need to bring these concepts into modules of advanced dip.
And I guess you can also do this without changing the whole system.
No?
Yeah. So because that is another challenge what we did. Yeah. That is a 10, 20 years project, and at the end you're not sure if you succeeded 100%. But within existing framework, yeah. Like you said that you are doing WIL, yeah, work integrated learning for the teachers, yeah. So you have the connection to the practice. But the next question is how you do it, yeah. So and how they benefit as a teacher from this work experience, and and that is a possibility, yeah.
I think the biggest challenge with that is the attitude within with industry in South Africa. We don't have that culture. Tolika here is agreeing with me, and I'm hoping that as part of what you do, you will open those opportunities, because it's very, very difficult to penetrate industry. If just imagine if people have gone through that exercise, it's only 2 that qualify. I think it begs a question as to what are we doing, as tertiary institutions, whether it's tertiary or technical and vocational. Are we reading the reports that are coming from MERSITA? What are they saying? And then how are we adjusting what we are teaching our students? Are we doing this service? Because remember, government is giving us money for these students to generate skills, but we give them the pay, they don't have the skill, and then they go out there, and then government has to do what again? Needs to retrain. So I think it's a big problem that we need to address as tertiary institution. Yes, Judah, let's close. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up.
I just a comment. I feel inspired by this more work process knowledge approach, because I exchange STEM and STEM education, so I think it's quite suitable to my research. So yes, thank you, Ruben, for bringing Michael. I think it's a model which we can use in our research.
Thank you, Prof. Judah. It's not me who is Real Center colleagues.
Oh, really?
I'm just hijacking Real Center.
It's fine.
I'm the stepchild this time.
Yeah. But however, I see this model being suitable for vocational training. When that objective knowledge, which is free of content, science, maths, whatever it is, when the students have it already, then they bring it to the problem in order to solve it. Because we cannot, it will be very difficult in the school situation to start really from the problem, which is what STEM actually argues for. But then the problem is that there's the danger of that the content in the disciplines is not covered specifically. Yeah, but I feel for STEM it's a good approach.
And the work process, yeah, as I said at the beginning, it's a pattern. That the work process, different tasks are related in time, and so if you use methods like DECAM or functional analysis, you cut the pattern, and then you're surprised why they cannot solve problems. Yeah, because the pattern is destroyed. Yeah. So work process is the pattern of problem solving. Yeah.
Colleagues, thank you very
And
much.
you asked a question about teacher training.
Yeah, how many years?
Yeah. So
Roughly.
so first you need a bachelor, and in the technical field we take bachelors who did a full engineering bachelor of engineering. Yeah. So they have these 3 years, and then they come to us, and then they do a 2 master of education on top. And with this master of education, they can go either to the company or they can go to the school. So when they have done these 5 years and they want to go to schools, they go 1.5 years as a student teacher in the school. So like an apprenticeship. They are paid as a teacher. So you have income, but you have not the full amount of teaching. You have a mentor, you're starting with few hours, yeah, under mentorship, and one evening in the week you are in a seminar where you reflect your practice. So and after that you have an examination and then you're a full teacher. So it's at least 6.5 years to become a teacher.
So, yeah, so 6.5 years, 7 years. If you fail, then it's a problem. But teachers in Germany are the top crop. It's not just, and they are paid better than professors in some cases. Yeah, it's actually picked that up.
But they are very close, yeah.
So unlike in our context, it's totally different. But thank you very much, Prof. Gessler, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you guys for your time, and I know we ran out of time, but it's fine.
Thank you for your interest.